Hey, D. Grant Smith here with you, and in this video, I'm going to give you the real secret to finding love, the love that all of us want to experience in life. Now, this love is bigger than just one thing. It's love in relationship. It's love in relationships, yes. It's love in our personal pursuits and passions, yes. It's love in fulfillment and feeling whole and feeling complete, yes. It's love in feeling confident and good about yourself, yes. It's also love even in your professional or career endeavors. And I'm going to talk about that from a very big picture standpoint and all the different ways that love interacts with this and all the different ways that we want to experience love inside this video, because all of them are connected. And you're going to learn one essential truth that will transform your whole life, because it's totally transformed mine, and it will help you break free from patterns of brokenness in relationships, including seeking validation and approval from other people, so that you can experience real love and acceptance and wholeness in yourself. Now, before we begin, if you're new to my channel, welcome to you. I help people grow in love so that they can experience truly healthy, loving, and wonderful relationships. And that begins with the relationship that you have with yourself. I call this relationship growth farming. And we are going to explore this in a much grander capacity in this video today. Now, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon, because I think it rings when I post new videos, and who doesn't love ringing bells? And as we get into this, if at any point in here you hear something that really rings true for you, let me know in the comments below. I'm not going to necessarily pause in the middle of the video and say, "Hey, comment if this connected with you," because that would just take too long. But I do want to hear from you, and I do want to know what really connects with you. So please leave a comment on something that just really stands out to you, or if I'm speaking your language, I want to know that. And if at any point in time any of that stuff happens, if you would also click the thumbs up button, that will help more people be able to see this. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So let's get started. Here's a fundamental truth for every single person in the entire world: love is what all of us want more than anything. But you know what ends up happening? From an early age, we become conditioned to think and believe that there's something about love that we have to find somewhere else. And so, what do? We end up chasing after it in a variety of ways because we don't think there's any other way that we can get it. This love that all of us want comes in different forms. For some of us, it's validation, validation that we're okay, validation that we're good enough, validation that we're cool. And that validation comes from somebody else. We seek love and we seek validation from other people. We seek other people's approval and their acceptance. And in romantic relationships, we seek their closeness and their affection, or their compliments, or even just the presence of somebody else. For some people, this seeking of love is from a place of success, professional, career endeavors. And you can especially see this in all kinds of different business activities and business or entrepreneurial stuff. Chasing after financial success, money, accolades, and awards from other people that are saying that you're good enough finally, or that you need to really pay attention to this person because they've won this award. And not to say that awards are bad or that recognition from other people is bad, but oftentimes people who are really ambitious and good hearted really struggle to believe in their own worth. And so they seek after something that will validate what they want to be true about themselves. For some people, not all of us, but for some people, we want to find the most perfect partner who will do what? Complete us. That one special person that we can do everything with. That one special person that will understand all of our needs and will accept us in all of the ways that we want to be accepted. That one special person that will never be angry at us, that will never get upset about anything, and that we can cuddle with all the time and kiss and rely on at all times and always be supportive and always feel supported by and enjoy doing everything together and have infinite amounts of companionship and intimacy with. Now, I'm not saying that all of these things are bad. I am saying that these are inherent desires that all of us have. Now, some people in this quest for love, some people, it's a quest for just feeling happy, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's thrills and adventures. Maybe it's the idea of an unknown exploration that will lead to some revelatory experience. These are just a few of the most common ways that people try to grab a hold of love that we all inherently want and desire. But what if the love that we all want is actually something bigger than what we imagine? And what if it's something that is bigger than what we think is outside of ourselves? Because in each of these examples, the thing that we want to feel to complete us and bring us happiness and peace is something or someone other than ourselves. So, what is this love that we all actually want? What does it look and what does it feel like? Well, let me give you just a few examples or ingredients or descriptors of this amazing thing that we've all rolled into one word and we've called it love: kindness, generosity, peace, safety and security, guidance and wisdom, respect and honor, gratitude and thanksgiving, wisdom, perseverance, forgiveness, grace, patience, trust, hope, gentleness, appreciation, abundance, being uplifted, prosperity, connection, giving, encouragement, beauty, infinite, and limitless, true. Who doesn't want to experience some, if not all of that, in their daily life? I do. Awesome. So that means that we are regular people, since regular, ordinary people are all wanting to experience love. Now, every one of these things that I just mentioned here are avenues and ways that love shows up and ways that love expresses itself. And you can also say that all of these things, all these descriptors, are another one word thing: good. So it's easy to see why God slash source slash the universe slash the divine, whatever you want to call that, is essentially pure love, because it is purely good. Now, I mentioned that we all seek after a love that's outside of us in order to find what we think it is that we're looking for. Because what we think we're looking for is this concept or this idea of love. And there's a reason for that. Because many of us have this belief deep inside of us that says that we're not good enough exactly as we are. So we have to go find what it is that we want that will complete us. And we believe that will be love from someone or something else. And then once we have that, then everything will be okay. We believe that we're unworthy of experiencing happiness and joy and the delight of love unless it first comes from someone or something else out there. And it's from this place of being dependent from an outside source of love and acceptance and validation and peace that we spend so much of our lives trying to chase after and obtain. But what if the love that we want isn't something that actually originates outside of us? What if the proverbial promised land that we all dream about, where happiness and peace and connection with this blissful joy isn't something that we have to chase after or hunt at all, but rather something that we can cultivate from within us? And there's a reason why, just to get a little bit into a different capacity here, I believe there's a reason why the Israelites spent 40 years wandering in the desert in the Exodus story of the Bible. Now, a lot of the teachers about this, pastors and whatnot, talk about how it was a lack of faith that kept them from going from the bondage in Egypt into the promised land that they were told about. And yes, lack of faith is a part of that. But there's also something about that story where they were searching for some sort of external illustration of God showing up instead of embracing God as being one with them. And today I'm here to share with you a little bit of insight into that idea, I'm going to share with you my own personal journey into what the promised land is and how to get there. Because the promised land is both an internal and an external location. And we're going to explore what this idea of the promised land means together. In our internal world, that's where our beliefs and our thoughts and our feelings and our ideas exist. And it's in this internal world where we create our external experiences. It's not the external world that creates your internal experiences. That's something to think about. And the more that we operate from a place of thinking that everything outside of us is what it is that we truly need to have in order for us to feel good on the inside, the more that we're going to be wandering in this proverbial desert, stuck and feeling lonely and feeling desperate and feeling without. And a lot of people spend much of their lives struggling in vain, wandering through their own proverbial desert, trying to get to a promised land that they hope is out there somewhere. Now, I am going to ask one very important thing of you right now. I want you to use your creativity and I want you to use your imagination because you have it and because actually your creativity and your imagination has incredible power. We're going to explore that in a little bit too. We're going to explore something that is taught by one of my favorite teachers named Neville Goddard, and he's very big on imagination. So I want you to utilize your creativity and your imagination today because it's in our minds where so much of the pain and the problems that we have or that we believe we have, they're not outside of us as much as they are inside of us. Which means that when we treat our minds and when we treat our hearts differently than we have before, that's actually the key to us finding the promised land that we desire and experiencing the love that we want to have and experiencing it in its fullest. To illustrate this, I'm going to paint a metaphoric picture of two very different people. We're going to see how they live their lives, and they're going to, in a way, illustrate this idea of believing that you're not good enough and needing something outside of you and learning what it means to foster love from within. You're going to see this juxtaposition of opposite ways of thinking and feeling to see which one is actually healthy and, and prosperous and which one isn't. So let's start with, and this is where your imagination comes in, because you get to paint the picture of what this person looks like and also what this person's experience is based on what I'm going to give you in terms of description. The first person is a big game hunter. Now, the big game hunter is driven by the pursuit of success in his work. Very, very ambitious person. And he also seems to have an inherent need to show off all the stuff that he has going on for him. So he has a really big, giant log cabin, and he posts photos of the outside and of the inside all over his social media channels. And he's constantly just him in front of his house or on his couch. And by the way, the interior of his home is immaculate. He's got custom wood furnishings and custom wood furniture. Everything in his home is in perfect order. Doesn't look like there's anything out of place. Almost like if he's got a professional cleaning person that comes in and straightens up everything in minute detail before he takes any of his photos. He also has 20 something point buckheads, deer and moose and antelope and all kinds of stuff. I'm not a hunter necessarily, so I don't know what all kinds of different types of big game heads, but they're all over the walls, and they're all things that he has hunted and mounted on the wall for everybody to see. He even has, and this is probably one of the most spectacular things, he has a staircase that leads up to a balcony, and there's just custom beautiful wood everywhere. But before you can climb the stairs, you're met by this giant bear that's been shot and stuffed, and it's coming at you. And you wonder, did he have to kill this thing as it was trying to attack him? There's intrigue here. It's a whole interesting experience to walk inside the big game hunter's house. Now, he also has pictures of himself on his walls and on his desk with celebrities and very famous people. He also has a whole bunch of awards that he's won for all of these incredible hunting trips that he's done and expeditions and all kinds of different things. One of the things that we don't see, though, are maybe pictures of him with his friends or pictures of him with a close relationship. We don't see family photos of mom and dad or brothers and sisters or a wife and kids. But we do know that he throws really big parties because he does put those on social media as well. And he invites people over a lot. Think maybe Great Gatsby like parties, massive, huge parties and celebrations where everybody's having a great time. But it doesn't seem like he has a whole lot of really good friends. And somehow we see photos of him with what seems to be a romantic interest every handful of months. So there's not like a steady and consistent love life from a romantic standpoint that the big game hunter has. Now, despite what looks like on the outside a very enviable lifestyle, if you haven't picked up already, there's something kind of missing here. And to illustrate that, let's look at the juxtaposition person that we're going to illustrate now. I want you to imagine a farmer. Now, the farmer has dozens, if not hundreds, of acres of land. And he has these really big machines and a whole lot of tools with one main purpose: working with the soil. His house isn't huge, it's quite quaint, but it is really cozy. And when you go inside, it feels warm. His refrigerator has a whole bunch of photos of him with different people. You presume it's his family and his kids and his wife or his partner, and some with other members of his family, some with members of his friends. He's got Christmas cards that he still kept, even though Christmas was 10 months ago, but they're still up there because they're people that he really cares about. When you go into his living room, he's got a TV and he's got a couch and he's got some chairs and there's some magazines on the coffee table that are not exactly in perfect order, and looks like there's a sippy cup on the floor and there's some other stuff that's around there. So it's clear that a family lives in this house. But it also is clear, based on the way that you feel, that you are welcome in here. It doesn't feel like you're an outsider walking into somebody else's place. Now, the farmer spends a lot of time outside, spends a lot of time cultivating his fields. He also spends a lot of time observing and caring for his crops. And in the process of doing that, he's always nurturing something. Some of what he harvests in his fields, he brings home, and it's to feed his family. Other things he sells off, and that goes into his business. And other aspects of his harvest, he gives away to people that he will never know and will never meet. But because he has excess, and because he believes in giving, he's always giving something out to people. He wakes up really early. He spends a lot of time outside. He spends a lot of time by himself. But his big prize isn't the size of his harvest, even though it seems to be quite large considering he can feed himself and he can sell stuff for his business and he can give things away. That's not what he's the most proud of. What he's the most proud of and what he's the most thankful for is his relationships, particularly his relationships with his friends, with his family. And you can tell that when you meet him. When he reaches out his hand and he shakes your hand, you can see in his eyes and his smile and in his handshake, there's this warmth and there's this genuineness to it. Now, from the outside looking in at these two people, which one would seem to be more appealing? The big game hunter, which I realize we didn't actually meet the big game hunter. We didn't get to have a personal interaction with him in this metaphorical story and illustration. But the big game hunter seems to have a whole lot of stuff going for him. He's hunted everything that he's most proud of, and you can see it. There's no way you can deny it. Once you walk into his house, it's just everywhere. He lives in this big multi-million-dollar home. He has tons of awards. He parties with celebrities. He's a very well-known person. And this would seem to be a life that would be full of love in every sort of way: financial success, validation from others, adventurous experiences, romantic conquests, thrills, and trophies. So what is it that's missing? This is how our culture and how our society paints the idea of love. And also, from a very young age, conditions us and programs us in very, very subtle ways to believe that happiness and fulfillment and love is something that we have to go after and pursue and hunt for in order to have. Now, whether that's romantic love or acceptance and approval or validation and fulfillment, or confidence and peace, or the idea of financial success, or the reality of financial success. The idea that going out and hunting for these elements of love are so prevalent in the ways that many of us have been conditioned from a very, very young age. That we have to find some element of love out there. Anyone know what the term, do you know what the term codependent means? Essentially, it's a reference to someone with behavior patterns of people pleasing, where your sense of self worth comes from somebody else being happy. And unless somebody else is happy, you're not happy. It's also a sense of fulfillment that's directly attached to someone or something else. That something could be business, it could be awards, uh, it could be money, it could be anything. What it is it makes you dependent on certain things happening a certain way, people treating you a certain way, or circumstances working out in a one particular way in order for you to feel worthy, to believe that you're good enough, to have some sort of sense of personal happiness and wholeness. The co part of codependency is that often it's another person, the person that you're seeking all of these things from, they have that need too. And so both of you are relying on each other in this very unhealthy dynamic of, I give to you, so you better give to me. And it's this belief that love requires you to show up only a certain way, not the way that you are, but you have to put on these masks or perform these roles in order to be accepted, in order to be worthy, in order to be received, and in order to receive the love that you want. Now, there are countless illustrations of these broken behavioral patterns all through media and entertainment. A few examples include the very unhealthy relational patterns illustrated on the 90s and early 2000s TV show Friends, illustrated in particular by the couple Ross and Rachel. Now, if you're like me and you grew up in the 90s, you watched Friends every week. Now I think you can binge watch it on HBO Max. And I still watch Friends. It's a great way to see illustrations of very unhealthy patterns of lack of confidence, lack of belief, and lack of self love. Now, with Ross and Rachel in particular, Ross, yeah, he's a nice guy. And at times he's very creative and at times he's very generous, but also he's incredibly needy and he's incredibly insecure. And you see this whininess and this neediness come out oftentimes, especially in his relationship with Rachel, his on again, off again relationship with Rachel. And Rachel, to her credit, although she is a very attractive woman, she questions herself and her own worthiness oftentimes. And she ends up getting in relationships or seeking after having relationships with people that are unhealthy for her. And so this topsy-turvy, up and down pattern of happiness, sadness, happiness, sadness, happiness, sadness illustrates in a lot of ways the ways that codependency has been inundated in our cultural programming to where we think that's a normal relationship, but it's not. And that back and forth, up and down, good and bad, isn't the way that it has to be. Because how often do we watch TV shows where the two lead characters that are in love with each other, they finally get together and we say to ourselves, I want that kind of relationship. I want to have my Ross and Rachel love relationship. We're conditioned to feel this way. We're conditioned to feel like this is normal, like they finally won, they finally have it together. And it's on TV, so we don't know whether or not that would actually happen. But do you want to facilitate or experience the up and down, topsy-turvy brokenness of that kind of relationship pattern? Or do you want something different? To me, that's not what the promised land looks like in a loving, healthy, wonderful, romantic relationship. And that's a real problem that we have to address, because the real root that we need to deal with here isn't the surface level stuff of chasing after love or chasing after acceptance or chasing after success or chasing after romance in order to have the love that we want. The real root is we don't know what love is. We haven't been taught what love is. We've been taught different things from parents and teachers and religious institutions and culture and TV shows and movies and books and all kinds of stuff about these different ideas about what love could be or what it might be. But we're not taught what love is, and therefore we're not taught how to give it to ourselves. Most of us are conditioned to try to chase after what it is that we want because we don't believe that it's already here. Since we don't know what love is, we also don't know how to foster it. And so, playing a role in this whole giant drama of the human story is this belief that many of us have, often from a very young age, that we're not good enough or we're not worthy of unconditional love from anybody, especially from ourselves, just as we are. Many of us are taught, again, from a very young age, many of us are taught to be nice. Were you taught to be nice? I was taught to be nice. I was taught to be nice and to do other things, do things for other people so that they will like me and accept me. Not because being kind and operating with love as a whole person who exudes confidence and exudes giving and exudes kindness is a way of being. No, I was taught to be nice so that other people would like me. It was actually used in that terminology as well. So from a very young age, I was conditioned and taught you need to foster these codependent patterns because that's how you get people to like you and that's how you make friends. But what that actually does is it leads to all kinds of broken patterns and people pleasing tendencies and codependency that fuel insecurity and fear and low self worth and lack of personal boundaries and broken and difficult relationships. The example of Ross and Rachel from the TV show Friends paints that picture really, really well. Now, I don't really care what religious belief you have or beliefs you have. I don't care what your faith practice is because I love you as you are. You can be any faith. I grew up in a Christian home, so my reference point for what I'm about to share with you here comes from the Bible. The Bible teaches that the two greatest commandments are love God and love others as yourself. Now, a lot of people mistake the as yourself part and they say love God, number one, love others, number two, and put yourself in third place, which isn't what the Bible actually teaches. The Bible teaches love your neighbor as yourself. But if you don't know how to love yourself, how can you really love your neighbor? And also, if you don't know how to love yourself, how can you love God? What if your understanding of love comes from a place of codependency, where you feel like you have to constantly be proving your worth to other people so that you feel worthy? If you don't feel worthy, how can you love God, who is infinite and wonderful and all good? If you believe that love is something that you have to seek and hunt for and chase after, isn't it inherent that you would naturally feel like you're not good enough or accepted for just being you? Unless this love comes from someone or something other than you and you happen to just get lucky enough to have it. So let's suppose that the big game hunter doesn't spend time on his own land. Maybe he doesn't even have his own land. He lives in a nice neighborhood. Maybe that's not an option. Maybe they don't do hunting in his neighborhood. Let's hope not, anyways. So instead, he goes to these wild, distant, and dangerous places to get his big prize buck trophies. Whereas the farmer doesn't go anywhere other than his own land unless he goes on vacation. He spends time on his own land. He has a deep and profound knowledge of his own soil and how the seasonal changes impact it, what grows best in what conditions, what areas of his fields need more work and tending to than others. Both the farmer and the big game hunter here are metaphoric examples of ways of being, of consciousness. Now let's look at them as illustrations of two things, our hearts and our minds for just a moment. The hunter doesn't see his own heart and his own mind as the source of his focus and attention. And so, what does he do? He goes outside of himself. And when he finds what it is that he's looking for, he takes it and he brings it back and he shows it off to other people so that they will validate him and they will believe that he's awesome and they will tell him all the things that he wants to hear. So he'll feel good about himself and he'll feel good about his accomplishments. But what about the farmer? In this metaphoric picture of the heart and the mind, the farmer is the consummate gardener of himself. He's committed to nurturing and growing himself through dedication to love and care of himself. He loves himself. He regards his relationships with himself and with others in very high esteem because his relationship is actually his relationship with love. He sees love in himself. He sees love in others. He sees love in what he does. So love is constantly all around him. It's constantly what it is that he's nurturing and fostering and growing. He's not trying to show off what he has to get accolades or approval or validation from anybody else. He doesn't need that. That's not the source of where his happiness and his wholeness and his confidence and his peace come from. Love comes from within himself. So here is the number one core principle that when you take this on and when you foster it and when you make this a part of the way that you live, it will totally change your life. I know this has totally changed mine. It's totally changed mine. And it's changed the dozens and dozens and dozens of people that I've helped personally through private coaching, the hundreds of people that I've helped through doing speaking engagements and courses and books and any of the other places that I've been able to just infuse this core truth in. What you plant and cultivate and foster inside your heart and inside your mind with your thoughts and your beliefs and your ideas, inside your heart with your feelings. What you cultivate and plant and sow inside yourself is what you are going to produce in your life through your attitudes, actions, and behaviors. Also, what you believe inside yourself, also what you believe in here, what you feel about yourself is what you attract into your life. You are a magnet, my friend. You're also a gardener. All of us are farmers and all of us are gardeners in this way. So just like orange seeds produce orange trees and acorns grow into oak trees, the seeds that you cultivate inside yourself will produce after its own kind and turn into something in your life. Codependency and seeking validation are not root issues. They are fruits of a belief system that says that you are unworthy and not good enough. Seeking validation and love from others is actually a harvest crop, not a root. It's a harvest crop of your inner garden. It originated as a seed that believing that you aren't good enough exactly as you are. The metaphysics lecturer, and I've mentioned him several times on several of my other videos, Neville Goddard, teaches many amazing things, but he has a few very core teachings. And one of them is this: everyone and everything is you pushed out. Now, what this means is that our inner beliefs and our thoughts and our feelings are reflected back to us in our life experiences. So, when you chase after love, what you're doing is you are reflecting a belief that you are unworthy of love. And so, what happens? What you chase after runs away. And this creates more feelings and beliefs of unworthiness. Now, let me bring this a little bit more closer to home. I've talked about metaphorical examples with the farmer and the big game hunter. I've talked a little bit about conditional programming through TV. I'm going to tell you a little bit of my own personal story. As you can see, maybe, I'm a pretty small frame dude. I was always the shortest. I was always the skinniest kid growing up at every age and iteration. And I'm still, amongst my circle of friends, still the shortest and the skinniest dude in just about any room. And that's okay. Because of my physical frame, I was picked on and bullied a lot growing up. Were you bullied too? How did that make you feel? Did being bullied make you feel like you were unworthy of acceptance? Or did it make you feel like you were insignificant? Did you feel like you were inferior to others? I felt this way for a very, very long time. And from that feeling and from those thoughts and those beliefs, I developed other beliefs that I wasn't good enough and that I always had to prove myself, that I always had to prove my worth to other people so that they would love me back. And what did that do? That turned me into a gigantic people pleaser. And so I tried to make other people happy and feel okay all the time, even if doing so made me feel like a doormat. I put other people over me because I didn't know what love was. Now, I have a very big heart. I'm a natural giver. I've always been this way. But in my past life, and I'll talk about what that means in a minute, but in my past, I would give and give and give and give and give and overgive out of a sense of duty that I had to love my neighbor more or I would be judged and not accepted. So, what did that lead to? One thing always leads to something else, in case you haven't picked that up already. That led to zero personal boundaries regarding self respect and self worth. I didn't know what boundaries were, if I'm really honest with you. I overcommitted everywhere. I overcommitted to commitments at church, overcommitted at jobs, because I felt like I constantly had to prove to other people that I was trustworthy and that I was capable. In my past career, and in case you don't know, I used to work in radio. I spent about 22 years in broadcast media. And at one of my old radio jobs, I overworked and I overgave excessively as a way for me to prove myself to other people. And what was the result of that? Since I wasn't operating out of love and I wasn't operating out of respecting myself, I felt overlooked and I felt exhausted and I felt like I never measured up. And this also led to some conflicts that I had with my employers and a whole lot of stress and anxiety. But remember Neville Goddard's teaching: everyone and everything is you pushed out. So my beliefs about being unworthy and not good enough were reflected back to me in my professional life. I had planted and sowed these thoughts and beliefs of being unworthy of acceptance, and unworthy of approval, and unworthy of promotion, and unworthy of receiving good things from the people that I worked with. And so I grew experiences that reflected that. Ultimately, I was hunting for love. Now, here's a quote that's been very, very powerful in my life. I first actually heard this from Wayne Dyer, but it didn't come from him. It came from a guy named D.H. Lawrence. And he said, "Those that go searching for love only make manifest their own lovelessness. And the loveless never find love. Only the loving find love, and they never have to seek for it." Now, that's been true in my life. I searched for love because I believed that I lacked that in myself. And I believed that the only way I would ever get to have love is if I found it outside of myself through relationships or career success or other people's validation. But what made me actually see all of these things for what they really were and face the music was something that was much more difficult and painful. Now, I thought that I would never experience heartbreak again after spending about 3 years or so in college chasing after this girl, and I ended up getting ghosted. I couldn't see it at the time that my insecurity created this super needy vibe that was really, really unattractive. But I was constantly trying to prove to her that I was worthy of being a partner, and instead, she kept running away. The codependency was really big. But shortly after the ghosting experience happened, I met this other beautiful girl, and she and I just clicked. We had similar interests. We both thought some of the same things were funny. It was easy to have conversations and talk. And so we started hanging out. And after a little while, she told me she liked me. Now, I was so scared of the idea of dating because of that past relational experience where I chased somebody for 3 years that instead of taking the time to heal my wounds, to foster love from within, to even understand what love really is, I proposed and we got married a few months later. Now, rushing into things unprepared, not taking things step by step, aka embracing the process, is a product of fear based thinking. Now, I used to really excel at fear based thinking, and I have been recovering from that over the last 4 years. I wasn't aware at the time, it was about 16 years ago when it started. I wasn't aware at the time that my deepest fears weren't something that I could leave behind if I don't actually deal with them, but could actually be carried with me and manifest themselves in relationship, and in this case, in marriage. I thought that the saving grace was going to be lifelong commitment, the exchanging of rings, and saying I do with the ceremony in front of friends and family. I thought that was going to be the savior to my biggest fear. My biggest fear was rejection and abandonment. But actually, those fears weren't the actual they weren't the actual root that I needed to deal with. The actual root that I needed to deal with was unworthiness. Now, again, I believed that getting married was going to save me from having to experience that fear, and I was wrong. I brought those deep beliefs of being not good enough and all of the people pleasing codependent patterns. I brought those with me into the marriage relationship. And I tried to do all kinds of things that were actually really unhealthy, including me being responsible for my partner's happiness. And these beliefs and patterns didn't produce the real love that I thought that I was going to experience from getting married, which I thought was the answer. And so, after nearly a dozen years of being married, and after saying I do, she decided that she was done and she left. And I was crushed. Now, most of us have experienced some version of what we call rock bottom in our lives. Maybe that's the end of a relationship. Maybe that's the end of a job. Maybe that's losing a whole lot of money. It could be any number of things. You've probably experienced rock bottom, right? Or what felt like rock bottom. For me, the experience of divorce and heartbreak and rejection didn't feel like rock bottom. It felt like I had been attached to a drill bit, ones that they used to drill for oil, and plunged 200 floors or more below rock bottom to some proverbial pit of hell. Now, it was terrifying, it was unknown, and it was so immensely painful. Now, anybody that has experienced divorce or abandonment or some very serious abusive things or related stuff can probably identify what I just described and what that feels like. And if you've been through this kind of pain, or if you are going through this kind of pain, I'm here to tell you that from the depths of my own personal hell and from the depths of your own personal hell can actually come an awakening and a complete transformation. So hope is not lost. The promised land is still available. Despite the pain and the torment that you've experienced in your hunt and in your pursuit and in your desire for love. My awakening and my transformation happened unexpectedly, similarly as much as the unexpectedness of everything suddenly falling apart. I sat where I'm sitting right now in my kitchen at my table, and this was probably 4 or 5 months after my ex moved out. I was sitting here and I was working on writing the book that would eventually become my blueprint and my playbook for the healing journey that I was at the time just beginning. And much of the wisdom and the insights from that book are what I'm sharing with you here in this video. So after experiencing deep and profound healing, I created a method for others who have been through similar heartbreaking experiences and discovered that Not only did they want to heal from their pain, but they wanted to experience real love. And so that's what my book is all about. It's called Be Solid: How to Go Through Hell and Come Out Whole. What led to the epiphany in the beginning of my journey into what I'm talking with you about here today was this story. I was sitting here at this table and I was writing, and suddenly I had a flash of a memory from, at the time, it was about a dozen years prior. And the memory was my wedding day. And at the time, that had been my favorite memory. So in this moment, suddenly my mind enters into this place where I can see everything that I saw when I was standing at the altar. And I saw her walking down. I saw the flower in her hair and the dress and the smile and family and everything. And it was just this beautiful, beautiful moment. And in that moment of the memory, I felt this elation, a similar feeling to what I felt on that day. And then suddenly everything went black. And it was like a part of my mind started speaking up and saying, this isn't your life anymore. She left you. She confirmed the reality that you're really not good enough. And in that moment, I fell into the floor and I started crying and sobbing and shaking. My whole body just trembled, and I just felt this incredibly intense amount of pain and loss. And it was in this place of just feeling utterly broken that I heard this still small voice speak to me. And the still small voice said, "You don't know what love is, and you don't know how to love yourself. And this is the true cause of all of your pain and problems." That was my awakening. And that began a journey into learning what love is and learning how to love myself. And over the next several months, as I began a very exhaustive study on learning what love actually is, that's when I became aware of how deep I had lived in codependency and how deep the problems that I thought I was running away from were actually things I was bringing with me. Where I realized and I could see my own broken patterns, where I could see my own beliefs and how they had actually manifested themselves in the form of these different iterations of things that had happened inside my relationship. And this revelation also brought something else to my attention too. The previous year, previous to my awakening experience, I had had this wonderful conversation with one of my biggest heroes and somebody that has taught me all kinds of stuff from reading. He's got, I don't know, 15 best-selling books. So I've been studying this guy for a really long time. So I had this wonderful and incredible opportunity to get to have a conversation with Seth Godin, to get to interview him for this podcast that I was hosting, that at the time was called the DIY Artist Route. Again, I was working in the music industry. I was helping musicians build relationships. And the thing that got me to have the conversation with him was I sent him an email, and I thanked him for being a powerful teacher, and I thanked him for helping me take one step every day towards my proverbial promised land. So my last question that I asked him was this: what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody for them to take one step towards their promised land? And what he said to me changed my life forever. I was reminded of this when I was in my study of learning what love is. This is what he said. He said, the idea that the grass is always greener on the other side is what gets us in trouble. What we need to do is realize that we have all the green grass we will ever need. What we need to do is farm it and not go hunting. As I reflected on that conversation, I had this new perspective of learning what love really is and learning how to love myself. And I put the pieces together. I had believed for so long that what I really wanted, acceptance, unconditional love, worthiness, was found in someone or something else. That's codependency right there. For me and for you and for everyone on earth, to reach our individual and our collective promised land, where happiness and joy flow like milk and honey, is to see that all that we desire is already here. It's already inside of us. It is us individually. The love that we all want is inside of us right now. The love that you want is inside of you right now, because love is where you came from, and love is who made us. Beyond the roots of any religion or any faith practice is this beautiful, formless source of all of life, and that is love. And this love is our true essence. Love is who you already are and who you are already connected with. And since love is who you are, you don't have to chase after yourself. You only need to farm love within yourself. You don't have to go hunting for it outside of yourself. I call this practice of planting and growing love from within relationship growth farming. And it is using this methodology where we break free from all of the brokenness of our past experiences so that we can stand on the solid ground that is love and become a solid person who operates from love as your identity. Your first and your primary relationship is with yourself. You have known you your entire life, and you are the one and only person that you literally and figuratively can't live without. You are your first priority, and you are the one person who is most deserving of your honor and your respect and your kindness and your generosity and your trust and your patience and your giving and your forgiveness and your grace and your acceptance and your appreciation and your approval and your affirmation and peace and all things that are good. By shifting your thoughts and your beliefs and your feelings towards yourself with love, that's where transformation comes from. And you become clay in the potter's hands. Almighty love, that's my name for God, takes what used to be fear and insecurity, people pleasing patterns, arrogance, anxiety, doubt, negativity. It removes these broken elements to mold and shape you into someone who is radiant and confident and kind and generous and patient and peaceful and joyful and a blessing. You become a solid person capable of experiencing and attracting real love into your life. No more chasing, no more seeking, no more hunting for love. This change and growth in your inner garden through love changes everything in your life. That's been my experience. The tools that I use in my own inner gardening and the tools that you can use in your own inner gardening to reshape your life are found in my book. Once again, it's called Be Solid: How to Go Through Hell and Come Out Whole. And I'll share a few of the tools with you here. They are affirmations, meditation, gratitude, and spending time with emotionally healthy people. You'll notice this. People who have the most healthy, loving, and wonderful relationships with other people have strong and loving relationships with themselves. They are great models for us to follow. They love from overflow, like a waterfall, not neediness like a partially full water well. Let me illustrate this for you real fast. Here's a water bottle I use for carbonated water. Most of us are taught or conditioned from a young age that we treat our hearts and our lives like a water bottle. And we want to fill ourselves up to the top, and then we go to other people and we pour our love into other people. Why? So that we will feel good about ourselves by being a giver, and also so we can hold our hearts up to them and ask them to pour their love back into us. And that's how we feel like we're going to get our love quotient back up to the top. But that's a broken pattern, and it leads to a lot of neediness and a lot of brokenness and a whole lot of codependency. The way to have truly loving relationships is not to give from the contents of your cup, This is actually for you. Instead, you go to the source of love who lives inside of you because it's where you came from, God, infinite love, and you sit under the waterfall of love that never ends. And you don't fill your cup up all the way to the top. You let your cup runneth over. You give from the overflow and you direct the channels of the overflow to who you want to direct it to. That way, it's not about somebody else giving something back to you for you to feel good about yourself anymore. You don't need them to give anything back to you. You are operating out of abundance, out of pure love, a love that isn't seeking and a love that isn't needy. I believe that most of us probably identify, or at least I do, maybe you do as well, with superhero characters, and we want to be one in some capacity. I used to want to be like Superman. Actually, I still do, if I'm honest. The embodiment of hope is a high calling, but let's look at Superman in a different capacity. Superman's romantic life is not an ideal setup. On the subject of cultural programming and conditioning and fostering unhealthy relationship patterns, Lois and Superman, it's a pretty obvious one that this one actually isn't all that healthy. Superman and Lois have a very codependent relationship. What do I mean by that? Well, what is Lois always seeking after? What is she always chasing after? The story. And she chases after the story to her own detriment, oftentimes, throwing herself in very dangerous situations, near-death experiences, so that she can have the big story, so she can have the Pulitzer Prize or whatever accolade it is that she wants, so she can be the big, awesome writer that always goes out and gets the story. What does Superman do? He helps facilitate this negative pattern, and he's always there just in the nick of time to save the day. Superman is always there to rescue her. She is always there to ignore logic and reason and do things that would probably be considered crazy. And you can see this iteration of their dynamic play out in just about every TV, film, animated version of these characters. It shows this dynamic. Now, when I said that I want to be like Superman, I embody hope and kindness. That's just part of my nature, part of my ethos, part of my essence. And I embrace this. In this way, I very much embody the Superman energy. But the love that I wanted and have attracted into my life is not a Lois Lane dynamic. I wanted and have attracted a match for my superpowers, not somebody that needs to be rescued. Codependency can fuel a savior complex. It's something to be very aware of if you struggle with a codependent pattern. And letting that go opens up the possibility for a healthy and stable and truly loving partnership. That's a real match for yourself. Now, my person is a match for my superpowers. Like a proverbial Captain Marvel, her joyfulness and kindness radiates from her eyes and her smile and her presence. She is love embodied in human form. She plants and grows love within herself. I am love. I embody love in human form. I plant and grow love within my inner garden every day. And so, what ends up happening when you plant and grow love within yourself, you attract that into your life. It becomes a super team of love walking around with arms and feet. It's the most loving, healthy, committed, wonderful, and amazing relationship. And we grow stronger and more connected every day. This is how I am living in the promised land of a truly loving and healthy relationship. And I share this with you because of what I shared with you earlier about going from not loving myself and feeling that I was unworthy of love and chasing after it and thinking that that was the only way that I was going to experience love was to hunt for it, and transforming from that way of thinking and believing and operating, and that being my identity, into someone who grows and harvests love inside myself to attract real love into my life. I share this with you because of what I shared earlier about going from not loving myself and believing that I was unworthy of love unless I went and hunted for it, into this place where I grow love from within and attract love to me. Attract real love to me. Love that doesn't need to be rescued. Love that doesn't need to be saved. A love that is a match. And it's better than I ever imagined. Now, that's hope for anyone who has experienced rejection or loss or a personal hell in relationships and maybe feels like it's impossible to have the love that you want so much. It's not impossible, but it does require you to farm it within yourself first. Now, again, this transformation that I've experienced did not come by way of me seeking or chasing after or hunting for love and acceptance and peace. It came from me choosing myself, putting myself on the solid ground of love, and choosing every day to commit myself to the real work of planting loving thoughts and beliefs in my inner garden, in the garden of my mind and my heart, and trusting that God, Almighty Love, will do the invisible work inside of me for healing and growth and change. Also, in this process is surrender. Surrendering my dreams and my desires to the divine and letting the right people and the right opportunities come to me in divine timing. Again, not chasing after and trying to force something into being, not rushing into anything or trying to shortcut the process, not controlling people, situations, or outcomes. Here's a little bonus secret for you in case you didn't know this already. Control of any kind comes from a place of fear. So instead of trying to control, release it. And instead, choose love, real love. Choose trust. Choose God. Choose you. Now, you've heard, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. My greatest desire, probably your greatest desire, is unconditional love. Jesus said, rejoice, for the kingdom of heaven is within. Now, that's pretty clear that the love that we all want, the kingdom of heaven, the promised land, is inside of us right now. It's not outside of us. Love is here. To reach the promised land that all of us want, to receive abundance and bliss and healthy and caring relationships, personal fulfillment, acceptance, joy and gratitude, honor and respect. All we need to do is commit to farming it within ourselves, not go hunting for it somewhere else. Now, you may be thinking, all this focus on myself is going to make me selfish, or at the very least, it's going to make me prideful and arrogant. You're quoting the Bible, D. Grant, but the Bible also says pride comes before the fall. So how is me being so selfish going to give me stronger and healthier relationships or even happiness? And that's okay. I get questions like this all the time. And honestly, for a really long time, I resisted self-love and self-care because I thought that it was this woo-woo way to be selfish and actually get away with it. But remember all that stuff about codependency? It's fear-based and needy and controlling energy. That's what selfishness is. It doesn't feel safe or whole or trustworthy or kind or gentle or understanding or compassionate. It doesn't feel good. It's depending on love from someone else in order for you to feel good. It's giving from an empty cup instead of overflowing with love. When you give love from abundance without wanting or needing anything in return, you are operating in wholeness and solidarity. You don't need love to come from someone else in order for you to feel worthy and complete. You are connected to God, and you are good on your own. And since you're not operating from fear or insecurity or lack, it's fun and enjoyable to be around you. People prefer hanging out with you because you are so chill and so easygoing. Do you see the difference there? It's the difference between chasing after and hunting for love outside of yourself and instead farming it from within. One is needy, controlling, fearful, and uncomfortable. That's hunting for love. There's a better way, an abundant way, full of peace and blessings and happiness and wholeness. You get that when you treat your mind and your heart like a garden, because it is. So plant, sow and grow love from within yourself. Love yourself with your self-talk, with your thoughts, with your ideas, with the people that you surround yourself with. Meditate on love. Use a journal and write affirmations and loving thoughts to yourself. Write yourself a love note, then read it to yourself. Change the way that you see and the way that you treat yourself. Let love be the filter in which you see yourself and the way that you see others. And this is how you cultivate heaven from within. As the tree of life grows within your heart and your mind garden, more harmonious and loving relationships are formed in your life. New opportunities for happy connections happen. The promised land is both personal to you and communal to all of us. It's love experienced through fruitful gardening from the heaven within you. Now, if you want to grow real love from within yourself and you want to break free from hunting or chasing after it, let me help you. You can read my book, Be Solid: How to Go Through Hell and Come Out Whole, for a complete blueprint and playbook for totally transforming your life and your relationships. That includes healing from past pain and growing amazing loving relationships, especially the loving relationship with yourself. You can get that at besolidbook.com. I've included it in a link below. If you want video training on this method, I have courses available as well. Those are linked below also. And if you want some personal guidance and direction, and maybe you want someone that you can talk with and share what you're going through with and get some insights and coaching on how to overcome what it is that you're going through and transform into a person who attracts love in instead of seeking after it, I'm happy to work with you. Relationships and personal connection are a very big value to me. And we can sit down over a virtual coffee and you can ask me any question that you have. I'm not going to give you a sales pitch. That's not what this is about. It is about me helping you and serving you. And if you want to work with me after that's over, awesome. The link for you to set up that time for us to talk is linked below as well. If you found this video helpful at all, please give it a thumbs up. And also, if you haven't already, please subscribe so that you can get more help in learning how to grow love from within, to break free from chasing after love or validation or acceptance or anything else. And by subscribing, you will also gain insights and wisdom for your self-love journey. Thank you. I appreciate you. I love you, and I'll see you soon.